All right, let's talk about a powerful, almost invisible strategy that top CPA firms are using to just completely shatter their growth ceilings. We're going to break down how you can build an engine for your firm that scales up, but without all the usual headaches of hiring, training, and that massive overhead. Let's dive in.
Does this sound familiar? I bet it does. It's a thought that, crosses the mind of pretty much every ambitious CPA firm owner. You feel it, right? That potential to grow, to take on more clients, maybe launch those new advisory services, but you're just held back by your current capacity. And that right there, that's the exact problem we're going to tackle today.
So let's kick things off by framing this problem. We'll call it hitting the growth ceiling. And it's really all about that fundamental tension between your ambition for the firm and the practical, day-to-day capacity of your team to actually get the work done. At the end of the day, it almost always comes down to this one thing. Your back office, the engine room of your firm, handling all the tax prep, bookkeeping, compliance, it becomes a bottleneck. You know the drill. Hiring, training, managing more staff, it creates this huge overhead and it just slows you down, preventing you from jumping on new opportunities when they appear. But what if you could expand that engine room instantly without all the traditional costs and the headaches? Well, that brings us to our solution in Section 2, the invisible back office. This is where we're going to introduce the whole white label concept. So, what exactly is a white label back office? The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It just means you have a dedicated, expert accounting team doing the heavy lifting, the tax returns, the bookkeeping, but all of it, every last bit, is done completely under your firm's branding. They operate like a seamless, invisible extension of your own in-house team. Okay, so this slide really breaks down that whole invisible idea perfectly. From your client's perspective, absolutely nothing changes. They're still seeing your reports, your branding, your high standards. But behind the scenes, a scalable, expert team is executing all the work to your exact specifications. It's your quality, your brand, but it's powered by this supercharged engine you didn't have to build yourself. So that leads us to the big question, right? Why is this model gaining so much traction? In Section 3, we're going to explore the key strategic advantages that are pushing more and more firms to make the switch. The first reason is a huge one: cost. Firms are reporting savings of 50 to 70% compared to hiring locally. I mean, think about that. That's a fundamental shift in your cost structure, and it frees up some serious capital that you can then pour back into growth. And next up is scalability. Firms using this model often report doubling their client capacity. Let that sink in for a second. Handling twice the amount of work without doubling your payroll. Now that is how you smash right through that growth ceiling. But beyond just the numbers, the strategic benefits are just as powerful. Your branding stays completely seamless, so client loyalty is never ever at risk. You get instant scalability for tax season. You completely eliminate the overhead of hiring and training. And here's the kicker. This frees up your key internal people to focus on that high-value client advisory work, the stuff that really deepens relationships and grows your firm. And you do all of this while maintaining full control. Okay, so the what and the why are pretty clear. But what about the how? How do you actually do this? In Section 4, we're going to walk through a simple 5-step build plan, a really practical roadmap that makes this whole thing feel achievable. So here are the 5 core steps. You start by strategically defining what work you want to offload. Then comes the critical part, choosing the right partner, and not just for skill, but for cultural fit. After that, you set up crystal clear communication channels. Then the key is to onboard gradually to de-risk the whole process. And finally, you get into a cycle of reviewing, refining, and scaling up your growth. Let's dig into step 1 for a second. The key here is to start with the most logical, process-driven tasks. For most firms, this is going to mean services like individual and business tax returns, monthly bookkeeping, and payroll. These are the perfect candidates to start building your invisible engine around. Now, I want to highlight step 4, because this one is absolutely critical. Onboard gradually. You don't go all in from day one. The smart way to do this is to start small. Give your new partner 1 or 2 clients or just a small batch of tax returns. This pilot phase is so important for building trust and really perfecting the workflow before you even think about scaling up. So what does all this actually look like in the real world, and what are the common concerns? In our final section, let's look at some real proof of performance, and we're going to tackle the big questions you're probably already thinking about. Remember that 2x capacity claim we talked about a minute ago? Well, this chart really brings it to life. On the left, you see a typical firm's client load, and on the right, a firm with a white label back office.
The ability to grow your client base that dramatically without a proportional jump in your fixed costs, well, that's the game-changing advantage right there.
And it's not just about capacity. Firms are reporting incredible results all across the board. Things like 70% faster turnaround times, which, naturally, leads to higher client retention. It also gives them the bandwidth to finally offer those high-margin CFO and advisory services they've always wanted to launch. You can see how that directly boosts the bottom line.
Okay, now for the #1 question on every single firm owner's mind. Will my clients know? This is, without a doubt, the biggest fear holding firms back from even considering this model.
And the answer is a resounding no, not with a true white label partner. Every single deliverable is formatted with your templates. It's written in your firm's voice, and most importantly, it's reviewed by your own internal team before it ever reaches a client. The whole process is designed to be completely 100% seamless.
All right, next up is the other big one, security. In our line of work, protecting client data is, of course, non-negotiable. So, is it safe?
Yes, absolutely. Any reputable partner takes this incredibly seriously. They use industry-standard security protocols, things like encrypted file sharing systems, really strict access controls so only the right people see the right information. And of course, they operate under legally binding non-disclosure agreements. So when you put it all together, what does this really give you? Building an invisible, white-labeled back office really boils down to 4 essential things: the freedom to scale whenever you want, the power to expand your services, the time for your best people to focus on client strategy, and of course, the margins to drive real profitability. And that leaves us with one final thought. I want you to take a hard look at your own firm today and really ask yourself this question. Is your back office a growth engine pushing you forward? Or is it an anchor holding you back from where you truly want to go? Think about it. The answer to that question could really change everything for your firm.